The celebration of creativity that we see in these remarkable works displayed here today is made possible by the Turbine Art Fair's drive and intention to develop young and lesser-known artists, champion established ones, and grow the market for African art. Certainly one such familiar name is Stompie Selibe, an artist that has long been supported by the Candace Berman Gallery and who is described by Candace herself as being the primary pioneer of the revival of the neo-expressionist movement in the South African context. Selibe's works, as with neo-expressionism, journeys inward in what appears to be a deep searching of the soul, an expression of the human condition. Candace describes it as a daring re-emergence and fusion of abstraction and the figurative, and perceives it as a healthy and long overdue counter to the dominant fixation with art as a weapon of struggle or a medium for ideology. Neo-expressionism developed as a reaction against conceptual art and minimal art of the 1970s. The artists returned to portraying recognizable objects such as the human body in a rough and violently emotional way, often using vivid colors. This style is repeated by Selibe, but for very different reasons. It is an expression of ultimate freedom and breaks away from the oppression and confinement of what has been previously witnessed in South African art.
I look at how to build up a foundation, meaning that how do I build up a texture on creating dynamic of elements, different kinds of elements that sort of evolve into an image. I'm more looking at movement, light and dark. I allow myself to play. I allow myself to work with the challenges that I'm facing at that moment. And it becomes defined as I work around detailing and the finishing. That's where I become more specific what the image says. Often people would ask me, why watches? And I'll say one sentence, I said, we're living in different times. And I think for me that those are things that I drawn from my surroundings and then interpret them in a very artistic way, in a creative way, to find meaning, what these confusion means to me artistically. It tells a different narrative from me and for the viewers as well.
Using mixed media on paper, Selibe's work is raw, whimsical, and has an intense subjectivity. One understands the work not because it is self-explanatory, but rather because of its way of appealing to our intuition. We recognize the psyche of the artist in ourselves. It is a more visceral, authentic approach to art and sends us into the depths of the known unknown, the said unsaid. Dramatically emotional, Selibe's art appeals to our most suppressed human yearnings, be it psychological, spiritual, or primitive and raw, and Selibe achieves this in an exemplary way with his distorted yet arresting images. This approach, which delves so deeply into the subconscious and celebrates viscera, allows us also to experience the undeniable materiality of its expression. Selibe is, however, not a lone player in the South African movement, and the Candace Berman Gallery, with its passion for launching new artists, introduces us to yet another master of neo-expressionism. Enter John Michael Metelerkamp. Metelerkamp is an artist that has deeply embraced this raw and authentic style. His body of work, The Immortal Nekkies, appears to be almost dystopic, and he uses mixed media on panels to create highly provocative pieces. His canvases are kaleidoscopic and electrifying, and with these works, he plumbs the depths of his humanness with an almost shocking exposé of his demons, past and present.
I'm definitely inspired by the difficulties I've had, and I try to break that apart and put the puzzle pieces together and try to create a solid story in my works. Each work is a story, and it's an investigation into what I'm going through at that time. You know, there's so much stuff that we are not aware of, but at the same time we are, and subconsciously that stuff filters into my subconscious, and that's where I kind of live. Is I live in the subconscious, and that's where my work comes from. If I do something that really excites me, a whole body of work kind of just unfolds, and it's very flowy. I mean, it feels like I can't really get out of the studio, just constantly trying to fulfill this story in my head. It's the taking in of reality as the world sees it, but the transmutation through the meandering of my own life and my own peripherals of stimuli that are coming in, that I'm able to create the story on canvas from what I'm experiencing on a subconscious level. I definitely feel like it's not really me that's doing the painting most of the time.
Metelerkamp's palette is wildly vivid and in your face, and hints at a kind of primitivism, arousing an emotional response from the viewer. Like Selibe, Metelerkamp has returned expressiveness and raw emotion to art, using it as a channel to communicate the world that they live in, and turning their despair and deep introspection into a powerhouse of works. The artist describes his work as autobiographical in the context of his recovery and journey to being a more whole person. He says that he does not edit his thoughts when he is painting, and rather works with a stream of consciousness, exploring mental states and often using awkward colors together as a comment on the crudeness of human life. Metelerkamp is concerned with displaying the world's agenda, manifesting itself in a dichotomy of physical versus spirit. The theme of spirituality continues as we turn our attention to the magnificent works of Elsa Duault. She feels that each act of painting is an act of prayer. Each prayer, which is bound to the circularity of a mantra, allows for surprises or accidents. And this is precisely what fascinates Duault. The process of losing the ego and allowing the fluidity and lack of control in her work. Resisting the inevitable outcome. Duault is an artist that is deeply concerned with infinity and the circular motion of life. Although not considered neo-expressionist, Duault, like Selibe and Metelerkamp, outright rejects the concept of restraint, which is evident in her technique. Duault does not control the outcome of her work. By using 3 acrylic paints of varying thickness, she allows the paint to move organically with the use of blowing air through a straw and using her hands as a medium rather than a tool. With her circular canvases, she turns her back on the 4 corners of a framed world and adamantly remains within the realms of infinity and the beauty of the surprises of Mother Nature.
I want to represent energy that is all around us, from the unseen to the seen, from the microscopic to the cosmos. I want to bring all that together, and I'm really passionate about that because it keeps involved in points that I couldn't even imagine before what is happening on my canvas. I want to make the paint play its own role and to express itself. I want to play with the paint as material plays in life. I think also what I want to bring back is the marbling art, the Hebrew art, the Turkish traditional art that was made thousands and thousands of years ago. And so today I'm bringing back that into a new design and a new way, and to remember Lavoisier, in art and in general, nothing is loose, nothing is created, everything is transformed.
Duault has entered the expressive potential of the world of augmented reality by introducing the use of the Arty Vive app, thereby piercing our reality and entering that of the artists. By pointing the app at her works, one is ushered into the studio and allowed a voyeuristic view of Duault at work. This once again talks to her sensibilities and the idea that nothing ends but continually morphs and grows. Essentially, the work of these 3 artists together exhibit the same and enduring theme. Freedom of thought, expression, and art should never be edited, controlled, oppressed. And in the words of Candace Berman, this approach is the art form which will restore to art its sacred and profane purpose and occupation.